Hey, welcome back. It's time to start another one of these little videos. This one is going back to the Panther project. As you can see, I've got it moved off the lift now. I have another bike coming in that I want to get up there and do a little work. Meanwhile, while I'm waiting for that to come in, I think I'm going to take the front forks off of this bike, because I think I mentioned before they need to come apart because they don't hold air very long. Or when they do, you just never know when it's going to lose air. So anyhow, I need to take them apart. I'm sure the bushings are worn in them. So anyway, the first thing I'm going to need to do is lock up the engine under the frame there, and so that it will stay in that position. And then I can take the front wheel off the bike, and there you go. The forks just collapsed a little bit. That's what it's like. Sometimes they'll hold air for weeks, and other times they'll only hold it for a few seconds. Anyway, I'm going to get to work at this, so I'll take a few more videos as the work progresses. Okay, I've got the fender and front wheel off of there. Now it's a matter of getting these forks out. The first thing I need to do is take that Schrader valve out of there. That just screws in there pretty simply. Then I'll take those crown nuts out and loosen off the two pinch bolts at the bottom of the fork tubes. And with any luck, they might come out of there without too much trouble. We'll see what happens. Okay, forks are off. It wasn't too hard of a job, but I did get a little rough with them, and I broke the crossover pipe. I should have been a little more careful. Anyway, I can fix that easy enough if I decide to carry on. But here we are, the famous Fellon and Moore Panther oleomatic type forks. They're an air suspension unit. There's no spring in them. These are the seals right here. They're just a cup seal. Probably could have made them out of leather now that I think about it. But anyway, this is what keeps the air in the actual forks. And anyway, I discovered the problem with these, why they're leaking. This particular side here, when I drained this fork leg out, it was full of oil. Oh, probably a cup of oil in there anyways. Nice clean stuff too. But when I went to empty out the other one, actually this leg here goes over here with this one. But this one here just had a bunch of dirty old muck in the bottom of it, maybe I don't know, about a quarter of a cup, about 3 ounces maybe or something. Anyhow, the real problem is that outer fork tube that seal rides in. It's out of round by quite a bit, because the piston that moves up and down in there and holds the seal is really hard to get out of the top half of the fork. And there's another thing that it's great to have a lathe for. I just wanted to see this. The tube is so obviously bent. You can see it just looking at it. It looks like a banana. But I thought I'd see which end is the worst, and it's the end facing the tailstock of the lathe there that's the worst. But they'll run out like this down here. This end of the fork is where the wheel would fasten on, and this brass colored section here is the part that gets held onto by the lower triple clamp. I'll just turn that over. And you can see that there's about 40 thou run out there. So in that distance from there to there, that's not great, but it's acceptable. What really bothers me the most of all is this end. Look how that's probably about 625 thou out of being true, right? So the thing is, if I put that in the press like this, that tubing is so thin walled, that's probably only about the thickness of 14 gauge steel. It's about 85 thou thick, so they're really not very thick at all. So what I plan on doing is I'll make up a plastic slug, or maybe even an aluminum one. But plastic would be better because it would conform to that bend that's in there now. And I've got all kinds of that that plastic in here. It's very similar to nylon. Anyway, I can cut it the right size so I can jam that down into that tube and fill it up, keep it from deforming any more than it already is. Then I'll put it in the press and I'll see what I can do, to get the tube straight in the first place. And then what I'm going to have to do after it's straight is machine up probably a piece of aluminum to go in there. That's a nice snug fit, get it in there, and gradually work that outer diameter here back into a round shape so that when I put the piston back in, the seal actually will seal against it. And we'll go from there. Anyway, if that doesn't work, I'm going to have to try to figure out some sort of a spring affair, which I would frankly probably trust a little more than these. But of course, the bushings up in here, you can't see it on this one, but you can if I take this out of the lathe. I'm not going to bother doing that. Anyway, the bushing on the other end, of course, it's worn out. Nice brass bushing, easily replaced. I can do that, no problem. I'll just make a new setup on the lathe here and put them in. But the big job right now is to get this straightened out and then to get it back into a true round shape again afterwards, which of course I can use the lathe to help me with that, make sure that I'm getting it within, I'd like to probably get it within about 4 thou, 5 thou, being true, perfectly round. That way that rubber seal, which is still in remarkably good condition, I can put that back in there and we'll see what happens, see if it holds air. If it doesn't, well, like I say, I will invent some sort of a spring affair for it. I'm quite sure a set of internal Triumph or Honda springs would work quite well in them. I just had to figure out a damping system for it. All right, okay. I'm getting ready to assemble the forks again. Frankly, I really don't trust 75-year-old seals in that. I have decided to fit these things with internal springs instead. So what I've done here is I've got a couple of old internal springs from a Triumph. I cut them off to length and push the end down nice and even like that. Heat it up a little bit, of course, first. Don't quench it. If you do, it'll break off. Just let it cool naturally. Anyway, I'm just going to put them in there like that. Drop that down inside of there like that. Then I'm going to put a washer. Can you see that? Just a plain washer on the top. Right on the top of that spring. So that this nut on the end of the damper assembly has something to push against. And then I'm just going to screw this whole assembly in there. And of course I'll put the slider on there. I hope I remember to do that first. But anyway, might as well do that right now. I've got some grease up in there, yeah. The bottom ends of these forks are greased. There's a little grease nipple right here on them. That goes right into the bushing. I've replaced those bushings, so they're all good. I didn't take them right out because I think they're soldered in. What I did was I machined them out, made a little bronze sleeve to take up the space, pushed the bronze sleeve in, put a little bit of red Loctite on it so it doesn't move. Drilled the drill way through for the grease so it could get in there. And so anyway, these are ready to go back together, like I said now. So I'm just going to grab that top piece here, screw this into that, right up there, and I should be able to put them back on then. And there it is, all back together. That went pretty well. I don't know if I mentioned or not, but I had to push a slug of aluminum up through that one fork that had been bent to make sure it got back into a nice round shape again. But yeah, I pushed that slug down through there. That's exactly the same size as the hole in the fork tube, so it was an interference fit, so it was a good push all the way through. But anyway, when it came out, the fork internals and seals all moved nice and smoothly up and down through the tube without any problem. I'm going to wait and paint that after after I get this out for its initial little test run here, which could happen anytime now. I mean, I don't have to have lights on it and that just to sneak it out around the end of the road or a parking lot. Anyway, she sits on springs now instead of air, and when I'm sitting on the bike, the front end compresses about 3/4 of an inch, so that's pretty close to what the oleomatic fork were supposed to be when they were loaded with the bike and rider. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching. Bye.